Welcome to the Mid-Ohio Valley Public Forum video podcast. This podcast features issues of interest to the residents of the Mid-Ohio Valley area. The coronavirus pandemic has changed civic life greatly in our country.
And one of the changes is this is an election year and candidates can't get out there and campaign, not the way they normally would. Generally, they'd be out there at fairs and festivals, meeting and greeting people, shaking hands. They can't do any of that this year.
So many of our initial podcasts will be interviews with candidates for local and state offices. If you're a candidate and you're interested in being interviewed, you can reach out to us through Facebook, that's MOV Public Forum, or via email, movpublicforum@gmail.com. We've concentrated on folk with primary challenges. So if you're a candidate for the general election, we haven't missed you yet.
Today we'll be interviewing Charles Sheedy. Charles is a candidate for governor of West Virginia. Good morning, Charles. Welcome. We're so glad you could join us this morning.
Good morning, and I'm glad to be here with you this morning, ladies.
With that, let's dive right in. Give us your best 1-minute introduction pitch speech.
Name is Charles Robert Sheedy Sr. I'm a lifelong Republican. I'm not a party switcher. I embrace term limits and lower taxes, smaller government. I also am pro-gun, pro-life, and pro-God. 37 and a half years ago, over that now because I was only 17 at the time, I took an oath to defend the Constitution of the United States. I still am bound by that oath. So don't question me on any of my constitutional beliefs because I have put my life on the line for residents to enjoy those rights and benefits that our Constitution affords us. That being said, I am a U.S. Army combat veteran. I'm also retired from the West Virginia Department of Highways. So I started out there as a equipment operator and finished my last 4 years there as Marshall County Administrator. So I do have leadership training and I do have administrative training also.
Well, Charles, thank you so much for your service. Now, all candidates have different knowledge, skills, education, training, life experience. What in particular, and you touched on it a little bit already, do you feel gives you an edge over your candidates? What is the other candidates? What is different about you?
The biggest thing about me, other than what I've already mentioned, being a combat veteran and being a retired state employee, there was over 30 years there of state employment. So, and I know pretty much how things work in the state, or at least how they're supposed to, not exactly how they work. I also am not a politician. I am not a businessman. So I am just a common, ordinary, everyday working man, and I employ common sense. And common sense is what is lacking in government right now, in my opinion.
Well, that may play right into the next question. We'd like to know what your main motivation is that made you decide to step up and run for office now.
I didn't see then, and this was over 2 years ago when I made the decision to do this. I didn't see then any leadership coming out of the executive office. Still don't. It's a power play. And I made the decision at the time that I would not buy a title, but I will work for the office that I want. And that is the office of governor, because I think I can make a direct change in the way things are done in the state and the way people are able to conduct their lives daily. I believe every West Virginian has the right to thrive and prosper. And we have not been given that opportunity over the last several decades.
So Charles, what do you think is your wow factor? What is the one thing about you that if voters know it would make them likely to say, wow, I'm going to vote for that guy?
I believe my common sense statements and also the issues that I'm not taking endorsements from anybody. The lobbyist groups that are out there, yeah, okay, they're not giving you any money, but they're still influencing their membership to vote for you. And I don't want anybody to be able to come into my office and say, we did this for you, now you need to do something for us. I want to be there to represent the residents of the state, not any lobbyist groups, not any outside groups at all. So I have not been taking out-of-state money or corporate donations or endorsements of any kind whatsoever. And that and my common sense has really, I believe, helped me in my campaign.
So if you're elected, tell us the one thing, your top priority that you'd like to accomplish during your term in office.
The main thing that I would like to do would be to get term limits initiated within the state. Term limits, it all leads to one thing, and that is corruption. And we all hear about corruption in government every day, especially in state government. We hear about it every day. I believe that if term limits were initiated and employed in the state, we would eliminate some of the corruption that could go on, because you're not going to have people that are in there for basically a career. And they say it's not because it's only part-time, but it's still a part-time career. I retired from the West Virginia National Guard. That was part-time, but it was still a career.
Well, Charles, I'm over 60 years old, and I think every governor for running for office in this state has promised to bring more jobs. And yet, here we are, still losing jobs, becoming poor as a state all the time. What kind of plan do you have to reverse that and bring in jobs where other people have failed to do that?
I hear a lot of these businessmen turned politician stating, you know, I created all these jobs. I created all these jobs. I created all these jobs. Business created the jobs. What government has to do is afford business the opportunity to become established in the state and then begin to thrive and prosper. That alone will bring jobs. The way things are right now, West Virginia pays the highest personal income tax of any neighboring state. That needs to be adjusted. We have people that making under $18,000 a year. They are paying the highest percentage of personal income tax. They're paying 6% of their wages to state income tax. The federal government lists $18,800 as poverty level. So we have people that are below poverty level that are being taxed at the maximum personal income tax. The inventory tax just kills small businesses. They can't afford to keep going on with this inventory tax, and it's got to be eliminated. Personal property taxes, that's another one that needs adjusted. It needs adjusted drastically. One of my goals is lower taxes and smaller government. You start eliminating government, you can lower the tax rates, and that's what needs to happen. Those things alone combined will bring business back to the state. I don't feel that it's a politician's job to go out and get business into the state. It's the politician's job to accommodate business so they can locate here. And ridding some of these exorbitant taxes is going to be a very good beginning.
So another issue for businesses and residents alike is a lack of high-speed, reliable internet access. The lack of internet access is holding the state back from becoming what it needs to be. What's your plan for getting affordable, reliable, high-speed broadband access to every corner of our state?
as you can see and can probably tell, I do not have reliable high-speed broadband internet access. I work off of a satellite system. It is adequate for the most part, but still would be immensely upgraded, could be immensely upgraded. Uh, West Virginia is such a mountainous area, and the terrain dictates that it's going to be very difficult to get broadband internet into every corner of this state. To do that, we would need not millions, but billions of dollars. And with the population decline, that is virtually impossible to get grants for, because there are other areas of the country where federal dollars are being absorbed to do that. So we've got to work on getting our population back. That would help immensely getting broadband within the state, but it's the whole thing is a very complicated issue. I know Shelley Moore Capito has worked feverishly to get internet access in the state. A lot of these politicians have. So it's not something that goes ignored. And this time, this pandemic, as they're calling it, has exemplified the need for it, I believe, because of the absence of the children in our schools. The school teachers could do a whole lot more if they had reliable internet access than they are able to do now. I think they are doing a very good job with what they have. I know in our local area, the teachers are preparing packets. They set the packets out on a table. The parents come pick the packets up and drop off last week's work. So things are getting done, but high-speed, reliable internet would ease that situation tremendously.
Well, everyone knows that for most of my lifetime, West Virginia population has been declining. We educate our children, send them off to college, and they leave the state once they have a good education. And people are not moving back into the state to replace the people that are leaving. Do you have a plan for addressing this? And, you know, we've talked about jobs and broadband, but can you think of something else we can do to bring people back to the state?
Our infrastructure definitely needs work. There's no doubt about that. And several organizations in the state, agencies, departments, they're broken. Nothing is being done to fix them. Money is being thrown at them, and that's just, in my opinion, that's a waste of taxpayer dollars. They're not fixing anything at the core level where it needs fixed. Our roads, for example, money is being thrown at roads. If you don't have the people there to maintain them, and we don't, you're not going to keep what you've got. So these departments and agencies that are broken, they need fixed. That would help a lot with getting people more interested in just coming to the state. Lower taxes, that would get people more interested in coming back to the state. My wife and I, we're not by any means wealthy. We are wealthy in here just for the simple fact that all of our children still live in the state and are raising our grandchildren here in the state. So our 5 kids alone, though, do not make the entire population of the state. That's just a local area. They still, I don't know, they're still bound by their heritage and their need and want to be a West Virginian, no matter what. So, and I think that makes a big input too.
Well, we've asked about what we see as some of the major issues facing our state, but there are many others. Aside from what we've already talked about, what do you see as the 3 largest problems facing West Virginia, and give us your nutshell plan for dealing with them?
Okay. Okay. Roads is the biggest thing. Everybody has to travel on roads to get to work, to go shop, to go to school. So that is one thing that everybody sees. We already addressed that, but I feel that that is one thing that definitely needs addressed. It has not been properly addressed. It has had money thrown at it. A thing by the name of the core plan has been addressed by one of the other candidates. The core plan is an excellent management tool, but it will not work with the current system of Department of Highways structure. You've got to get people back in there. You've got to get equipment back in there. If you just implement the core plan right now, you're setting up an entire department for failure is all you're doing. You've got to get wages up. That's another thing. We lose people constantly to better paying jobs, and they're here. There's no way around that at all. Another thing that needs fixed is DHHR. DHHR is a shambles. There was some recent legislation passed just this year where the adoption process has been streamlined, which is excellent. I mean, that's going to help a lot of these kids, and we're flooded with them. So that's going to help a lot. Department of Corrections is still vastly understaffed. There are just so many areas and agencies in the state that are broken that need fixed. And to fix them, you've got to work at it. You can't just throw money at the problems.
Well, Charles, we are often our own harshest critics. And so I've got a two-part question for you. What do you think is your worst quality? And what do you think is your best quality?
My worst quality? Being very self-observant, I would have to say my inability to lose weight since I quit smoking. That would have to be my worst quality. I've been working at it, but it's just not happening. The ability to quit smoking, I view that as an addiction. That is a definite addiction to nicotine. And I have not been smoking now for almost 4 years. So I still get those cravings and urges that I want a cigarette. But then when I sit down and look at it and say, why do I want to do that? Well, I don't. So maybe it would help me lose weight, but I think there's other ways to get my weight back off after that rather than going back to smoking. My best qualities, I think that would be my ability to work and my commitment and loyalty to work that have been demonstrated my entire life. So you wouldn't have to worry about me not being there. On one of our recent trips to the legislature this year, my wife and I were there on Women's Suffrage Day. And that was to commemorate the 100th anniversary of the women's right to vote. And we were not the only group there that day. I was there with the North Central West Virginia Republican Women's Group. They invited me and my wife down. So we were there with them. But you also had West Virginia CDL there. You had several student body groups there from FFA. And on the way home, I mentioned it to my wife, and this has bothered me ever since then. The governor wasn't there to even greet them or just say hello to anybody, and that needs to change. And I would definitely change that. If a group came to the Capitol to see how things work, I would want to make sure that they at least got to see the governor and speak to him no matter what.
Well, with that, we've come to the getting to know Charles Sheedy, the person section. What's your single most favorite place in West Virginia or thing in West Virginia? Not the people, though. They're not a thing or a place.
Right. And that's a hard one. I've been around the world, and it's always great just to get back home. And back home, you just tend to classify as back home in West Virginia. Uh, Man, like I said, that's a hard one. Home is here, but it's also in Beckley. It's in Charleston. It's in Bluefield. It's in Princeton. West Virginia is just, it's like no other place. I can't describe it. Wherever you go, you run into people. And during this time, the wife and I have just traveled in our camper trailer with our golden retriever, and the people that you meet and the people that you run into, it's West Virginia. That's all there is to it.
So, Charles, what are your personal core values?
My personal core values: I'm strong Christian. I I do not believe in baby killing. I believe in life begins at conception. There's just no question about that. Like I said before, I took an oath when I was 17 years old to defend the Constitution, and that sticks with you for life. I repeated it several times during my 37 and a half years. Every re-enlistment, you repeat that oath. So it's not something that goes away from you. I think that in my ability to just buckle down and get things done, I think those are my main values.
Well, what would you say you as an individual, not a candidate, are passionate about?
I'm very passionate about family. My from West Virginia, my ancestors go back to 1802 in Mon County. We still have the oldest continuous family reunion held every year in Maple, West Virginia. That's the White Family Reunion. One of my ancestors was Dr. I.C. White. He was the first state geologist, and many geologists still base their work and a lot of their theories off of his findings and his work. I've had ancestors and these are from the White family, that were in the signing of the constitutions and the conventions in 1861 and 1863 in Virginia and Wheeling here. So, when we broke away from Virginia. So my family ancestry goes back. I also had a great uncle who was the Senate Speaker. That was Monty White. So public service in my ancestry goes back also. I think that plays a big part in who I am and what I'm about.
So, Charles, to go to something a little lighter, what do you enjoy doing on your off time?
I enjoy spending time with family, with my wife, and traveling with her and our golden retriever, Susie. That is my entire campaign staff also. So my wife is my campaign manager, and Susie, our golden retriever, is our public relations director. She loves people, and people tend to love her. So she's just happy.
Well, what would you say is most unique about you, other than having a golden retriever as your PR director?
Oh, what is most unique about me? I don't know, just my ability to meet with people and talk with people and find a happy medium. You're not always going to get things the way you want them to be, but you can work and find a happy medium to get things to work for people.
Well, with that, we've come to the end. We'd like to give you a few minutes to tell us and the voters anything you think we've missed that we need to know about you or your campaign, including how to get in more information on your campaign, how to get involved, get in touch with you, donate, etc.?
Okay, as I mentioned before, I will accept donations from residents. I'm not asking for them at this time. I got to get through the primary first. Once I get through the primary, then things would have to get very serious. Not that they're not serious now, because I am very committed and serious. We've been at this since October of 2018, so it's been a haul. At any rate, if you need to get a hold of me or want to get a hold of me, I have 2 Facebook pages. I have Charles Robert Sheedy, and then I have Charles Robert Sheedy Sr., Republican candidate for governor of West Virginia. If you go onto that one, you can go down on the right-hand side, and there's a little about block in there. You can click on that, and that will give you a lot of information about me that I put in there. So, but if you have any questions, ask questions. You know, I answer all my own questions. That come. I don't have a staff, but we're having a anything to get with me. That's much it now.
Well, I think we lost the internet connection there for a few minutes. Do you want to
I
repeat
think we did
it?
too. No, I think we got it all, didn't we?
We got, I think when I quit hearing things was you were telling people you could go to your Facebook page and click on the About Me block and find out about you. And then you were saying something after that, but we couldn't catch it.
Okay, yeah, if you have any questions, ask me, because I don't have any staff members that answer my questions for me. I answer them all personally. So if you have any questions, just ask.
All right. Well, Charles, we'd like to thank you for taking the time to talk to us this morning. We really appreciate it. And, you know, we want to get this information out to the voters so they can make a more informed choice in the primary. So thank you for meeting with us this morning and doing this. And everyone.
Thank you very much for inviting me, ladies.
Yes. And thank you. Everyone, wash your hands.